too. You've seen quite a few notable veterans of VGC, but you've also seen a couple of more lesser known players
Hmm.
just coming up to the front for the stage of, just showing how much they've worked with their team and where they've been able to reach, of course, this section of the tournament. But of course, we're going to go ahead and check into our players for the first match, ladies and gents. But we're going to, before that, apologies, we're going to see what the current standings are. And it
Hmm.
is going to be between China, Singapore. China at the minute, as you can see, have already qualified for the semi-finals with a 5-1 aggregate versus Singapore.
Yes, exactly. China have already got the victory, but there is still a match to play between Zay and Melvin here. And this is the thing I like about this tournament. It's kind of at the stage now where we've all had the time to work with this series and we've got our restrictors, we've got our common cores, but there's still a lovely kind of scope for that creativity. And it is nice to see the different Pokemon, as you can see here, coming through that have been able to be showcased. I can see a Cheeky Ditto, Mienshao coming through again. The restricted, not too many surprises in there necessarily, but we've certainly been able to sort of showcase a few different team compositions at the moment.
Yeah, exactly that. And, at this stage, of course, like we've previously spoken about, the World Cup tournament itself kind of forms its own metagame, if you may.
Mm.
And like you said, it's open to creativity, as of course that is also bound to what your player, what your opponent, sorry, has previously brought as well. So you can try to
Hmm.
find that trend and see what they may be favoring more or less of, and try to interpret that as you may and bring a surprise pick. Like for example, we've been seeing Araquanid and Pelipper as well.
Mm.
So I find those very fascinating as they've got some very interesting roles up against, let's say, certain Kyogre weather
Mm.
matchups.
Yeah, exactly. The weather cores have actually been coming through quite strong at the moment. A lot of tall, cold Groudon, not necessarily on the same team, but just bringing the sunshine.
Yeah.
And then, Kyogre being the big rain setter. But you mentioned the Pelipper as well. That's one that's kind of made a little appearance, kind of a blast
Mm,
from the past from 2017 with the kind of double ducks combo. I remember being very popular.
yeah.
But it's nice to kind of see these different weather modes come into effect. But let's have a closer zoom in on our first match for today so you guys can get familiarized with the teams.
Yeah, and we are going to be featuring Feng, Zay, as we're going to be seeing it from their perspective, and they are going to be bringing the Calyrex Shadow Rider, Incineroar, Rillaboom, Rapid Strike Urshifu, Nihilego, and that Whimsicott. So, very hyper-offensive team here, which of course leaves the potential of, let's say, Calyrex of Whimsicott maybe having a niche pick of move choice, such as maybe Trick Room to kind of counter their opponent's Trick Room.
Yeah, that's the thing. Really heavy offense on this team. You've got the very solid Firewater Grass Core there with the Rillaboom, Incineroar, and the Urshifu. And again, some really heavy hitters. We know how much that Shadow Rider Calyrex can do, particularly if it gets those Grimnays rolling.
Hmm.
Urshifu, we know, is just an absolute powerhouse. And Nihilego obviously able to hit really well on the special side, particularly if it is running the Meteor Beam with the Power Herb. It can just be so destructive and get that special attack boost straight away. If the opponent doesn't have a way to be able to kind of stop those boosts rolling from Beast Boost and Grimnay, then it's going to be pretty hard to stop Zay in his tracks.
Definitely may be the case, of course. And Zay's going to be going up against none other than Melvin K, as they're going to be bringing the Xerneas, Incineroar, Entei, good old Venusaur, female Indeedee, and the Torkoal. So we see a duo coming back, very notorious in, I'd say, a lot of previous series, to be honest, but most notably in Series 8. But it does not have Dynamax anymore for that Venusaur, but it's quite interesting to see it find its way in the current meta as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. Pairing up Venusaur with any kind of Sunsetter is just such a solid combination. And it's nice to see the other supportive Pokemon you've got here as well. We all know Incineroar. I think, we know it very, very well at the moment with
Yeah.
that rotating of the Fake Out and Parting Shot and just hard switches. It's just such a great utility Pokemon. But then also Indeedee having that redirection or even the helping hand support that we got to see showcased on Friday from the Indeedees on the field can just provide that extra damage output for your Pokemon. Again, having those supportive Pokemon to set up the Xerneas can be really lovely as well because once again, if you can get your Xerneas boosted up and start steamrolling through your opponent, if you don't have a way to stop it, then you can just pick up KO after KO.
Yeah, exactly that. So something that Zay is going to have to try to take into consideration going into this matchup, of course, as we're going to go ahead and try to set things up from both sides of the field. But of course, Lou, we did see that China right now, they've already qualified. They've already passed through. So you would expect there's not that much pressure going into this match from either side.
Yes, that's the thing. It's one of those matches that you already know the kind of result, but at the end of the day, World Cup is still a team effort, and if the matches have been played in a different order, this could potentially have been a decider or been the first game on the sort of chalkboard, not chalkboard. What am I trying to say? The scoreboard. That's it. You can tell I'm a teacher, can't you? I'm like the chalkboard or the whiteboard. It's one of the boards. But either way, just because it's being played slightly later and the result's not there, it can still, want to represent that team effort and sort of showcase the match. And it looks like Zay's already kind of got the options hasn't locked them in yet, but is really starting to think through. And I'm loving the option of the lead here with that Whimsicott. Lovely to get that kind of speed control right out there from turn 0.
Yeah, exactly. And the Whimsicott can kind of ignore, at least when it comes to any sleep powders from that Venusaur, as it does exert so much pressure with its Prankster ability. Of course, it has to take into consideration that Incineroar with the Fake Out, but nevertheless, I think as long as you try to get your speed control going up against a team such as Melvin's, I think you should be okay, as of course we have seen there is no Trick Room setter over on Melvin's side actually.
Yeah, that's the thing, and Whimsicott can be so great for having that priority taunt to kind of shut down any sleep powders from the Venusaur, but you have to watch out for the Indeedee, obviously bringing that Psychic Terrain. The kind of Prankster priority isn't going to be able to be utilized going forward. Obviously, Tailwind you can use on your side of the field, that's totally fine. But you need to make sure that your Whimsicott's going to be in a position where it's not going to be locked down or shut down. It's going to be able to start dealing some good damage.
Yeah, as we are going to be getting the leads, ladies and gents, we're going to be seeing Melvin start off with their Incineroar and Xerneas, both shiny, both fabulous, whilst we're going to be seeing very fabulous Pokemon over on Zay's side as well, the Whimsicott and the Nihilego. So a very interesting lead from both sides. We do have Fake Out pressure from Incineroar, but then again, this Nihilego is a very good choice going up against both of Melvin's Pokemon.
Yeah, the Fake Out choice is going to be interesting here because Whimsicott could potentially go for Taunt, try and shut down that opposing Xerneas from going for the boost, but then at the same time, you don't want to be taking a Sludge Bomb or even a Meteor Beam trying to tackle down into that Incineroar, maybe predicting a Protect from the Xerneas. But instead, Fake Out going down into the Nihilego, going to be the Moonblast coming out from the Whimsicott.
Oh, and this is going to be boosted by the Fairy Aura, and wow, it gets a special attack drop as well to boot on that Xerneas. Not what Xerneas would be wanting to see in this situation. It took a lot of damage, whilst also having its special attack damage output dropped is not at all what Melvin wanted to see. Of course, we do see the Geomancy being set, which does mean that it will now be boosting its special defense, speed, and special attack by 2 stages, but at +1 of its special attack right now.
Yeah, that's the thing. The special attack drop from that Moonblast, really, really nice to negate the damage output of that opposing Xerneas. Incineroar, though, now does have the opportunity. You could always go for something like the Flare Blitz here into that Whimsicott, or even just go for a passing shot into something like the Nihilego and just try and reduce its damage output. But instead, just going to be a straight hard switch, bringing in that Indeedee. Really nice here to shut down any Prankster.
Exactly that. So, and it's there, of course, for the redirection. We may even be anticipating a Protect coming out from the Xerneas because it just wants to try to reposition here, but no Protects, actually. Just a Dazzling Gleam. Not enough to pick up the KO on the Whimsicott, and we're going to be seeing Moonblast coming out from the Whimsicott into that female Indeedee. Just barely misses being able to guarantee that 2-hit KO onto it, as we are going to be seeing the Nihilego charge up its Meteor Beam, and we see the proc of that Power Herb, which does, of course, turn that 2-turn move into 1, but we didn't actually see it. Was there a miss?
Yeah,
my Lord.
It missed down onto that Indeedee, which of course had previously been the Incineroar. That would have been absolutely devastating. So as sad as it is, to miss the Meteor Beam and have, you only get the Power Herb the once, you do still get to keep that special attack boost, and that's something that you're going to need in the face of a special defense boosted Xerneas here. Whimsicott, if it has something like Helping Hand, it can try and boost up the offensive pressure of that Sludge Bomb even more, and that's why the positioning that Melvin here is really nice, having that Indeedee on the field, just going to be able to redirect across any of those moves and preserve the Xerneas a little more. Something like another Dazzling Gleam will certainly be able to pick up the KO against that Whimsicott and keep chipping away at the Nihilego.
Yeah, but the Nihilego does not want to be susceptible to any sort of damage right now. It goes for that Protect, as Whimsicott is going to be safely yet surely setting the Tailwind up right now. So it doesn't mind going down here to Xerneas' Dazzling Gleam, but no, we actually saw that Moonblast come out from the Xerneas. Makes a lot of sense, as we do see the Indeedee following up with the Expanding Force, and due to the Psychic Terrain being on the field, of course, it is a double target move right now.
Yeah, I really like this actually. Going for the single target into the Nihilego just would have been able to deal that additional damage to obviously Fairy type move, not the most effective against it. And Expanding Force being able enough to clean up against that Whimsicott. So just knowing you'd be able to get the KO against it either way. Urshifu out here on the field though, again, always Pokemon to be slightly concerned about with the physical damage that it can deal. But then again, if you're the Urshifu, you don't want to be taking any Fairy type moves here. Something like a Dazzling Gleam is going to be bringing down that Urshifu. If it's something like a Focus Sash variant, then, you know, again, you want to be really, really careful of not getting that procced. And if you're carrying, obviously, the Expanding Force, you're going to be able to just double target up. It's not the Dark type variant of Urshifu, so those Expanding Forces are going to be able to chip away.
Or exactly that, as we are going into the turn right now. Follow Me comes out from the female indeed. He just wants to try to redirect any sort of potential damage here, but we actually see the Urshifu move first and go for the U-turn, and unfortunately for Zay's side, not pick up the KO. That is a very bulky indeed, as we are going to be seeing the pivot action going right now. The Zay is going to be bringing in their Calyrex Shadow Rider as the Nihilego. Of course, if it is going for the damage, which we all expect it to be doing so, it will be targeting down this Indeedee instead with a Sludge Bomb. Of course, it will be getting that Beast Boost though, Lou, and it is now at +2, but the Xerneas is open to cause some damage right now.
Yeah, that's the thing. Xerneas still to move here. Does go for the Dazzling Gleam. Able to steal significant chunk to that Calyrex that has switched in. But this Nihilego really is the formidable threat here at the moment. Particularly as it's got the +2 special attack. It's now negated the +2 special defense that Xerneas has got. So these Sludge Bombs are going to hit hard. And unfortunately for that Incineroar that's just switched in, Psychic Terrain is on the field. So Fake Out cannot be utilized into that Nihilego on this turn. At the same time, being the Calyrex, you're still sitting in a very vulnerable position here.
Yeah, exactly that. But you do have to remember the Tailwind is still on the field for Zay. So Zay does have the speed advantage right now. They could easily go for an attack with the Calyrex Shadow Rider, whether that be Astral Barrage or Psyshock, and maybe even opt to go for that Rock-type move into the Incineroar with the Nihilego.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, with the Nihilego going for, obviously, the Meteor Beam, you're going to have to get that charge up. But if you're able to kind of sort of counter for that and make sure that you've got a way to pick up a KO against the partner Pokemon, then it could be a way to kind of deal with the Incineroar. But I would say at the minute, definitely, time is of the essence and you need to be utilizing these turns well. At the same time, you know, that Tailwind is going to expire at some point. So Melvin needs to play around that, needs to make sure that you're counting those turns and putting your Pokemon in an optimal position. Calyrex is just going to go straight here down into that Xerneas with the Psyshock.
Oh, the Psyshock enough to pick up the KO there. Gives itself a chilling Neigh boost on the way out. Now bringing it up to +1. We see the reveal of the Life Orb as well. And Lou, Power Gem revealed, picks up the KO and completely knocks out this Incineroar from game 1. Very dominant from Zay's side with that Tailwind support.
Hey, I mean, that's one way to do it. Have the Power Gem move on there as well as the Meteor Beam. Just having that utility to be able to not have to charge up, I think, is a really, really nice element of team building there. Entei coming in now as well. A Pokemon that, again, doesn't want to be taking these Power Gems. And as the Beast Boosts have rolled up on that Nihilego, Entei sitting in a very dangerous position. I have to really credit the Tailwind coming out from that Whimsicott, though, sort of towards the end of its time on the field, because Xerneas getting up its speed boost, normally that puts it in a position where it can be so hard to be dealt with. But having that Calyrex coming in, already a naturally speedy Pokemon in the Tailwind, meant that it could outspeed and pick up that KO. And of course, Psyshock hitting on the defensive side, so the physical defensive side, meant that all of those Geomancy boosts were null and void. Entei, unfortunately, not going to be able to hang around for long.
No chance at all. +1 Calyrex Shadow Rider boosted by that Life Orb. I think maybe Zay would have maybe opted to go for that Astral Barrage rather than the Psyshock, just to try to test to see if there's any sort of way the Entei can survive, maybe if it's an Assault Vest variant, or just try and scout out the scenario. But I think, like you said, we just saw that Tailwind being so crucial, and of course, the Nihilego having access to the Power Gem rather than just having that Meteor Beam as a choice of Rock-type move.
Yeah, and I mean, information certainly is key. You want to try and utilize your turns, even in kind of a win situation towards the end of the game. What other information you can learn for game 2, because it is a best of 3 set. But I really think in that game 1, you kind of called it while we were talking in team preview, that it's a very hyper offensive team. And we just saw it be so dominating, picking up KO after KO after KO. And it really did showcase Zay's kind of offensive pressure on this team. And if you're Melvin, you now need to think of a way around that.
Yeah, exactly that. And of course, in this scenario, Melvin does not have access to Trick Room, which would be so nice up against this sort of hyper-offensive team. So they're going to have to try to better utilize the situation. We saw Xerneas go for the Geomancy there. Very unfortunate turn one as the Moonblast from the Whimsicott did drop that special attack, as I don't think the Whimsicott would have survived the Dazzling Gleam that did come out during that turn two, which of course would have ricocheted and meant that the Tailwind may have not been able to get set up there.
Yeah, that's the thing. That Moonblast sort of drop was critical throughout that game, and it certainly meant that Xerneas wasn't the powerhouse that we know it can be. Just getting those kind of lesser rolls on the damage output just sort of meant that they could stay in the game, and that, you know, they weren't exactly as threatened by Xerneas as you would normally be, particularly when you've got the Pokemon that can take those attacks like Nihilego, and once you get that special attack boost up and you get your beast boost up, then you can start steamrolling through the teams. And yes, one thing you can say is, yes, you got the special sort of attack drop. Also, the Meteor Beam did miss that Incineroar a little earlier on, or as it turned out to be the Indeedee on the switch in, which meant that the Indeedee could still pull away some of those attacks and protect the Xerneas a little bit longer. If the Meteor Beam had hit, then Melvin wouldn't have had that utility option there. So again, I think both our players need to kind of just take a look going into this next game, whether if you're Zay, you're going to stick to that kind of hyper-offensive mode and just keep going through the teams. And if you're Melvin, pick kind of which switches and which defensive plays you want to go. And then you might be able to kind of shake Zay's strategy a little bit.
Oh, exactly that. As we are going to be seeing Melvin now lead with a different set of Pokemon. We see Venusaur and the female Indeedee, whilst over on Zay's side, we are going to once again see the Whimsicott and Nihilego.
Yeah, I really like this here. I mean, if you're Zay, there's no reason to really necessarily change that up. Whimsicott gives you so many good utility options, and we saw how devastating the Nihilego was. But I love this adjustment by Melvin here. Bringing the Venusaur on, supported by the Indeedee with the Psychic Terrain, means that those Sleep Powders are going to be able to go off into the sort of Nihilego slot. We know the item on Nihilego, you don't have to worry about safety goggles or anything like that. So it's sitting very vulnerable. And considering Nihilego is one of the critical Pokemon in that game one, being able to just shut it down could be so advantageous for Melvin here at the beginning of game two.
Yeah, as in this scenario, like you said, I think Venusaur does have some sort of options to go for. Maybe try to get a cheeky Sleep Powder if you can. Of course, there's no terrain that can negate that effect. And female Indeedee and Venusaur, me personally, I have used it quite a bit in older series. It could be very annoying to have to deal with because it has a lot of options to go for, as we're just going to be seeing the Nihilego go for the Protect, actually.
Yeah, and the Indeedee as well. Not going for any redirectional support here, and I like the Protect by the Nihilego. It knows that it was quite exposed. The Whimsicott targeting it down, again, not going to be able to deal any damage, and it looks like actually just left, right, and center. It was basically a kind of null turn 0.
Oh yeah, just a bit of a stalemate there from both these trainers. They're well aware of what the focus should be, that they should be targeting on the opponent's side of the field. So henceforth, why we did see that interaction play out there. So what do you expect a bit of a more dynamic here? Should Whimsicott try to go for Tailwind for future turns, or just hold on for it at the minute?
Well, this is the thing. The Protects are going to start running out, so I wouldn't be surprised to see some switches happening. But instead, Whimsicott staying on the field, going for the helping hand, going to help out his buddy Nihilego here. As it goes for that Meteor Beam, is it going to hit this time, Costa?
Oh, well, let's hope for Zay's case. Of course, we see the interaction of the Power Herb right there, and I was going to freak out for a second, Lou. No, we see the animation from the Meteor Beam. It goes ahead and, oh my lord, it picks up the straight raw KO, hitting with the power of a +2 stage Meteor Beam is not what you want to see and be on the receiving end for, as we're going to be seeing the Earth Power coming out from the Venusaur. Straight pick up of a knockout there. Critical hit, but I'm not sure if that would have mattered as much, as it is ×4 weak to ground type moves.
Honestly, absolute destruction in that turn. The Meteor Beam absolutely wiping the Indeedee off the face of the earth there. But critically, the Earth Power, I was wondering if the Venusaur did have that in his move pool. Sometimes we saw it, but I feel like it was often quite useful in those Dynamax formats as well, where then you could obviously get the special defense boost upon turning it into the max move. But actually having the utility of it here, just able to shut down that Nihilego. Like you said, 4 times weak to it. Don't think the critical hit necessarily mattered, but definitely was some style points on there for that Venusaur, just trying to get revenge revenge for its teammate in that game one. Incineroar being able to switch in now, and I do like this here from Melvin. You know, you did lose your Ndidi, but the Psychic Terrain's still in play, shutting down that Whimsicott, and having the Incineroar, you don't really necessarily want the fake out here because the Pokemon you need to stop is the Shadow Rider Calyrex, which you can't fake out anyway. So depending on what Incineroar's got, it can try and deal some good damage to it. If it's running a Dark type move, then you can obviously try and do some good damage against the Calyrex here because you just want to remove it from the field. And Incineroar, while it doesn't have the boosts on the Calyrex, Incineroar can take those moves relatively well.
Yeah, and I think Melvin got what they wanted. They wanted to get rid of that Nihilego, as it was such a thorn in their side when it comes to their strategy, as right now the Calyrex, it's in a bit of an awkward situation, does not want to look down at that Incineroar, henceforth why we do see it switch out for the Rapid Strike, Urshifu, and a setup from the Whimsicott with Tailwind. It wants to try to make sure that it will be faster, just in case Sun is in the back for Melvin's side to try to go ahead and proc that Chlorophyll boost from the Venusaur. We see the Focus Sash reveal, the Sludge Bomb being brought down, and just a Throat Chop from the Incineroar. It tried to target down that Calyrex Lou, but thankfully it was able to run away in the nick of time.
Yeah, and good reveal for Zay there to know that you've got Throat Chop on that opposing Incineroar there. Whimsicott obviously getting up that kind of tailwind there, kind of later on in the game to support the Urshifu that has switched in. And again, beautiful positioning here by Zay. You've got the Urshifu in unintimidated because Incineroar was already on the field. And this is where you can apply a lot of pressure with either the sort of surging strikes, just trying to deal with that Incineroar, remove it from the fray, or try and tackle down against that Venusaur. And I'd say Venusaur certainly is a threat as well. Close combat, however, I mean, that's another way to deal with the Incineroar, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely is. As maybe Zay took into consideration a switch in of a Torkoal to bring the Sun, henceforth try to lower and reduce the damage output. As we're going to be seeing the Moonblast go out into the Venusaur, hoping to pick up any sort of special attack drop. None to be seen, but we do see a Sleep Powder now connecting from that Venusaur into the Urshifu slot. So interesting that Melvin didn't opt to try to go and pick up a KO onto that Urshifu, which it surely would have with a Grass type move.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you know that there's no Focus Sash on that Urshifu there. It's already been revealed on that Whimsicott. So I guess you could always try and go for the damage, but then you might want to just have it put asleep at the stage so your Xerneas can come in and try and get that boost up. You know that it's guaranteed to take that one turn of sleep now, so your Xerneas can get itself all boosted up. That said, I don't know if it even needs to be boosted up at this point. You know, Urshifu doesn't want to take those Dazzling Gleams, and 1 HP Whimsicott definitely doesn't want to take a breath of wind at any point here either. So it does just allow you to kind of go straight for a Dazzling Gleam, and then, you know, you can even go for a Sludge Bomb into that Urshifu and just try and pick up a KO against it.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense because all the pressure right now is on Melvin's side, as they did land the Sleep Powder there, which kind of forces Zay to not be able to bring in their powerhouse of a Pokemon Calyrex, as we do see it taking its guaranteed turn of sleep there. Moonblast comes out from the Whimsicott, goes into the Xerneas, and once again, Lou, we see the special attack drop reminiscent of turn 1 of game 1, but of course Xerneas tries to do the exact same thing. It goes for the Geomancy. It will still have a lot of speed backing it, and the Venusaur will be open to pick up a KO of its choice in either the Whimsicott and the Urshifu right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I was saying you don't necessarily need to go for the Geomancy here, but then when you consider that there's still Tailwinds on the field and you need to kind of work through those turns, I think having the boost up is actually going to be advantageous for that Xerneas here. You're kind of playing towards the end game here, and of course Melvin does need to win this game too in order to continue on in the set. Venusaur being able to pick up the KO against the Whimsicott there, very nice to get the KO, but it does give Zay the opportunity now bring in that Calyrex from the back. And you know, you've dealt with that Incineroar, you don't have to worry about any Throat Chops, but I think actually having that Geomancy Xerneas now is really a formidable threat. The Urshifu still doesn't want to take any of those fairy type moves, particularly not now they're boosted, and the Calyrex Shadow Rider is going to be very targeted down by both the Venusaur and the Xerneas together.
Yeah, and I don't think that this Urshifu is any sort of threat right now. We know that it's locked into close combat, so of course that does not hit very effective on either the Venusaur or the Xerneas. So I think the real focus right now should be to try to prioritize that Calyrex Shadow Rider, as if you allow it to run through your team, trust me, it definitely will.
Yeah, that's the thing, and you need to make sure as well that Venusaur's not going to be given the opportunity to put the Calyrex to sleep. Like you said, if their Urshifu's locked into the close combat, Xerneas and Venusaur aren't going to worry about that too much at all, and Xerneas can easily deal with the Urshifu anyway. But this Calyrex Shadow Rider is going to be the issue here. We do see the Urshifu wake up, however, and you can see Venusaur able to take that really well.
My lord, we do have to take into consideration that the Tailwind is still on the field, hence why we saw the Urshifu move straight away. But wow, we see the reveal of the substitute on Calyrex Shadow Rider. Of course, the Dazzling Gleam does pick up the KO onto the Urshifu, does break that substitute quick as the substitute was set up. It is now gone. As the Venusaur will be going for the Sludge Bomb there, of course, not very effective, but that's not important when you have a critical hit. And a poison to boot as well.
Hey, this Venusaur is unstoppable in this game. You know, it gets the critical hit with the Earth Power, then gets a critical hit with Sludge Bomb, and gets the poison as well. It is not messing around here for Melvin. Unfortunately for Zay, things do look to be in a little bit of a predicament at this stage. You know, one Pokemon down against two with a boosted Xerneas as well.
Yeah, and as we do see Zay going ahead and clicking the forfeit button right there, because it makes a lot of sense. I think Melvin did so well to try to go ahead and bring that pressure back onto Zay and force this set into a game 3.
Yeah, honestly, these are my favorite kinds of sets to commentate over. I love a game 3 because you get that extra level of tension and kind of pressure on these players as well, because it's now one game to be able to survive out the set. But also because you've got those kind of hyper offense modes in these teams, the games are kind of fast paced, and it really does come down to one wrong move here or there, or one correct positioning that will really just swing the momentum in your favor. And that's exactly what we saw Melvin do to adjust in that game 2, bringing in his Pokemon to make sure that the Venusaur put the opposing Urshifu to sleep, allowing the Xerneas to get set up safely. Despite taking the Moonblast special attack drop again in game 2, it actually didn't stop the Xerneas at all. It was able to still pick up those KOs and be really formidable as a threat. And I think that's what really made the difference from game 1 to game 2.
Oh, yeah, exactly, because it was put in that position, that strategic position, where it would just go ahead and checkmate the situation. And that's exactly what it did from Melvin's side. So that Venusaur, very interesting bring. We saw it change the dynamic of this match completely. As are we expecting the same kind of lead coming out from Melvin, since it worked so well for them in that game too?
Yeah, I mean, Melvin certainly has a few options. You could stick with the same 4, but then again, we haven't seen the Torkoal yet paired up with the Venusaur, and considering the Whimsicott on the other side of the field does like to go for those Tailwinds, albeit a little bit later on in the particular game, you know, having the option to boost up your Xerneas is the Venusaur's speed there. Xerneas can do it by itself, doesn't need Torkoal's help. But being able to have the utility of those boosting speed options, I think, could give Melvin an advantage. But then again, if you're bringing in the Torkoal, you'd have to drop out either the Indeedee or the Incineroar. Incineroar, you know, has been very good having that kind of fake out utility, but I think paired up with the Indeedee, that then is a little bit detrimental to some of the capabilities that the Incineroar has. If you set your psychic terrain up, you can't go for those fake outs, but at the same time, the Indeedee hasn't been able to stay on the field too long. It's been KO'd pretty ruthlessly by Zay in games 1 and 2.
Yeah, it really has, but in a way it has done its job as long as it could have, because it's just there to act as some sort of sponge, and if of course left untouched, it goes for those expanding forces, which can be quite detrimental when you do have a Nihilego, which is quite weak to it. But we are going to be seeing the same lead come out from Melvin's side, and a bit of a change-up from Zay's side, which they're going to be bringing the Whimsicott and the Calyrex Shadow Rider now as a lead.
I am forever going to call my Indeedees the Sponge, the nickname in game. I love that little reference there, Costa. Brilliant. But you're quite right. That's what it does. It goes for those redirection attacks, draws in all the attacks, and just tries to absorb them like a sponge as best as it can. And again, loving the lead out here from Melvin, having that support there. So Venusaur can potentially go for some sleep powders here, try and put that Shadow Calyrex asleep. Whimsicott, safe to kind of do what it was doing last turn, can go for those helping hands. But of course, Astral Barrage, Indeedee's not going to worry about those at all, having the normal type side to it. So it does put a little bit of difficulty on that Shadow Calyrex. If it wants to go for something like a Psyshock into the Venusaur, though, that could be devastating.
Oh, just talking about devastating, we see the helping hand coming up from Whimsicott. Astral Barrage, of course. The Indeedee is immune to this, but guess what? The Venusaur is not, and it gets immediately KO'd from turn 1. It was so good for Melvin in that game too, but it's just absolutely dropped at a drop of a coin, essentially, in that scenario. We didn't see the Follow Me come out from the Indeedee, as it did opt to go for the Expanding Force, did deal a lot of damage onto both the Whimsicott and the Calyrex, which does resist it, but this is a whole different game 3 right now.
I mean, this is the thing about Prankster and Psychic Terrain. You can stop your Prankster Pokemon from hitting Pokemon on the opposing side of the field, but all those Helping Hands Tailwinds on your side are still going to be allowed access. And just being able to go for that Helping Hand, so good here. Xerneas obviously coming onto the field unboosted at this point. Is gonna again be in the target of one of those Helping Hand boosted, also +1 boosted thanks to Grimnay, Astral Barrages, and although Indeedee is going to be able to, avoid taking those attacks, it's not like it can protect the Xerneas. If it follow me as well as a double target move, Xerneas is still going to be sitting very vulnerable. And at the same time, the Whimsicott could always try and, go for one of those Moonblasts, try and get one of those drops again. So I think it's quite wise from Melvin here to be going straight for the protect, allow the Indeedee to go for some more sort of expanding force damage.
It makes a lot of sense. So you never know. This Indeedee may even carry a Shadow Ball as a niche pick to try to go and target down that Calyrex. As we're going to be seeing the Calyrex try to go for that Astral Barrage. It fails to connect due to the Protect and the immunity. But no, we see the Expanding Force from the Indeedee. It's able to go ahead, pick up a KO on that Whimsicott, deal a bit of chip damage onto that Calyrex. But it does allow a free switch in under Tailwind conditions for Zay.
That's the thing. I love the way Zay is thinking right now, knowing the Whimsicott's probably going to go down to, hey, let's use Tailwind while it still has the option to be able to. And then it still gives Zay that free switch. And bringing in the Nihilego, a Pokemon that we've seen be so destructive throughout this set so far, just once again puts Zay in the offensive driving seat here. You are definitely the fastest thing on the field here. Xerneas is already protected. So yes, Indeedee can go for that redirection. But then if the Calyrex wants to go for something like a Psyshock, it's still going to be hitting pretty hard with the terrain and the +1 special attack. And if that Nihilego just wants to go for getting up its boost again with the Meteor Beam, we've seen that can easily one-hit KO that Indeedee.
Yeah, and in this situation, all of that offensive pressure is on Zay's side. As we have noted quite a few times during this first set, Zay is rocking a very hyper-offensive team. So it's all about momentum, it's all about positioning, and it's all about timing. As we are going to be seeing, the female Indeedee actually opt to go for Protect.
Yeah, not protecting its partner here at all, just going straight for the protect on its side. As the Psyshock comes out, targeting down the Xerneas on its own. It's not quite enough, though. Calyrex really wanting its helping hand from its Whimsicott to help it get that last bit of damage. But here goes the Nihilego.
Yeah, so let's see if the Nihilego does actually target down the Xerneas. It would make sense to do so, but you never know. Zay may have anticipating maybe a double protect or some sort of miss there, but no, we see the animation go. It does connect. Xerneas gets knocked out. This Nihilego is running wild at +2 now of special attack right next to this Calyrex Shadow Rider, which is at +1. And this is looking so out of anyone's league right now to try to bring this back.
Honestly, I love that targeting by Zay there, knowing that the Xerneas was pretty vulnerable. You maybe would have thought it could have switched, brought in the Incineroar or, any of the other Pokemon in the back who all are rocking that Fire-type variant, so a Meteor Beam is going to hurt connecting into that slot. So although actually, it was quite a lot of damage for only a little bit of HP left, it did just put Feng into a really great position. Again, Tailwind still up. You've also got the plus, sort of the Beast Boost and the sort of the Meteor Beam boost as well on that Nihilego. It's going to be so devastating going for one of those power herbs. And again, Calyrex just can go for Psyshock. He can go for the Astral Barrage here and try and pick up against the Entei. There's just so much offensive pressure coming out here.
There really is, and I think in this scenario, we have previously seen that an Astral Barrage at +1 boosted by that Life Orb is more than enough to pick up the KO onto an Entei. So we'll have to see if Entei, for whatever reason, has Protect, but we do not see any sort of play such as that come out. We see the Astral Barrage, and it's enough to pick up the KO, just like it did in the previous game. That Entei is out of contention of this Game 3, and the female Indeedee is all by its lonely self right now, up against some very frightening powerhouses of damage.
Oh, it's just able to cling on here, go for another expanding force, it's like, don't write me off quite yet, but unfortunately just doesn't have the power utility to be able to deal with these formidable opponents on Zay's team. I mean, this Indeedee has literally sat here from the beginning of the game. It's avoided all those Astral Barrages because of obviously its typing, and it just has been almost heartbreaking for the Indeedee. It's meant to be the great supportive Pokemon for a Pokemon duo, and actually it's just been unable to help its partner Pokemon from being KO'd by this Calyrex. And Calyrex, to add insult to injury, is actually going to be able to pick up the KO against Indeedee with the Psyshock, leaving Zay taking this set in such a commanding fashion.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing, ladies and gents, about hyper-offensive teams. If you do not have a way to kind of break down that momentum strategy that they go about, they will run through your team. If you do not have checks, they will not care. They will go straight through. That's why I'm saying, that's why I mentioned, of course, Trick Room is a good option to try to maybe go and counteract this situation. But, of course, Melvin did do fantastically in game two. It's just they lost that Venusaur so quickly in game three. That helping hand Astral Barrage, it was essentially made from Zay's side to ignore any sort of follow me's and guarantee a KO there.
Well, that's the thing. Zay did some fantastic targeting, straight away in that game three, taking out the Venusaur, ignored the Indeedee. Venusaur's the threat here. And then just suddenly was able to keep picking away at the Pokemon, knowing Indeedee didn't have the utility to be able to pick up KOs against Zay's team. I mean, this is why I love hyper-offensive teams. I know sometimes in the more kind of bulkier, kind of stally kind of teams, there's a lot of other skill being utilized as well. You have to be very calculated, know exactly when to make the moves, and when to play defensively. But with the hyper-offensive teams, I feel like particularly when you can play in this best of three set, you see a master of adjustments. And that's what Melvin did so beautifully in game two, getting in a position to be able to take it to a game three. But just unfortunately, Zay was just able to come back in game three and seal up the set.
Yeah, and they're able to go ahead and skyrocket China through to semifinals with that 6-1 win. China versus Singapore. That was the final match of this set. So huge congratulations, of course, to China. Many commiserations to Singapore, but honestly, huge congrats for being even able to go ahead and reach top 8 where so many countries failed to do so. So huge props to them, and they've done fantastically throughout this tournament.
Yeah, they certainly have. And of course, we've got more fantastic Pokemon matches to come. I'm going to go make a cup of tea. I recommend you guys go grab a drink as well and come back after our short break.